Hello everyone, welcome to grade 9 academic math, and we're now learning how to get an equation of a line when it's in this form, y equals mx plus b, and how to graph it. Okay, so again, for the date, just put whatever day you started this on, and we'll continue from there. So number 1a, it says, complete the table of values for y is equal to 2x plus 3. So this is the table of values. We're going to complete what's going on here. Okay, so you can show your work on this space here in order to fill out the table. So for the first one, so when x is equal to 0, so I'm going to rewrite the equation here so I can just follow it along. So we're saying, well, instead of x, we're going to substitute in 0. Okay, so y equals 2, and instead of an x, I'm going to put brackets in there because I know I'm substituting in a number, and that number is 0. So when we solve this, we get y is equal to 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3. So we don't write the 0 down, and we just have y is equal to 3. Okay, so when x is equal to 0, our y value is equal to 3. So we're going to write that down in our table. Okay, I'm going to separate this. I'm going to do the next one. So what about when our y value is equal to, I'll even write a few of these here. So our y is equal to 2 times x plus 3. Y is equal to 2 times x plus 3. Okay, so notice that I put a bracket instead of where the x values go. So I'm just going to write that in first so you guys can see the pattern that's happening. So here we have 2 times 1 is, so y is equal to 2 plus 3. We get y is equal to 5. So our y value is 5, okay, when x is equal to 1. Here, when x is equal to negative 2, we have y is equal to 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And then we get y is equal to negative 1. Okay, the next one, you get y is equal to 4 plus 3. And then y is equal to 7. So notice here, I messed up on this one, but on here, I tried to keep the red colors are the steps that you're doing so that you can see what step is happening. Okay, so now that we have the table completed, let's graph the line. So I have 0, 3, so 0, 3 is right here. 1, 5 is here. Negative 2, negative 1. And 2 and 7. Okay, so now you can grab a ruler and connect the dots. Okay, so you're going to make sure that remember, in order for you to know that you did it right, it should make a straight line. Okay, and if your graph doesn't tell you the x and y axis, you should write that down also. Okay, so you get used to that. So here's our line here, and then C says, use your graph to state the y-intercept. So if we follow it along, you can see that the y-intercept is right here, okay? So our y-intercept is at 3, okay? The y-axis at 3. And what's our slope? So you can figure out slope by either doing rise over run, so you know, rise over run from 2 points, or you can do the slope formula, okay? Or you could figure it out from the equation, actually, because you just learned that in lesson 7. Now, the fastest way that I can think of is just looking at the graph since you've already graphed it. So if you take the rise, 1, 2, and run is 1, right? So the slope is your rise over 1, and that's really equal to 2. Okay? So then we'll do the other two questions. Okay, so for number 2, let's make those tables again, okay? So there's my equation there. So it's y is equal to negative 3 times x minus 1. I'm going to split this off. Y is equal to negative 3 times x minus 1. Okay, and my x values are 0, 1, negative 2, and 2. Okay, So here y is equal to negative 3 times 0 is 0, and we're just left with negative 1. So that's going to be negative 1 there. For when x is equal to 1, we have y is equal to negative 3 minus 1. So that equals to negative 4. Okay, and then we have y is equal to positive 6, and then minus 1. So we have y is equal to 5. And then y is equal to negative 6 minus 1. So now we have y is equal to negative 7. Okay, oh, I forgot to write this one down. So that's 5 and that's 7. Okay, so I'm going to plot these ordered pairs on the graph. So we have, don't forget to put your x and y axis. So you have 0, negative 1, 1, negative 4, negative 2 and positive 5, and 2 and negative 7. So my mistake, I forgot to put the negative in there even though I wrote it there. Okay, and notice when I was going to do 2 and positive 7 and realized that doesn't make a line if it's up here, and I just looked back at my table and saw that I forgot to put the negative symbol there. Okay, so now let's connect the dots. Okay, make sure you have something with a straight edge in order to draw the line. Okay, so it says, what's our y-intercept? It's right here at negative 1. Okay, and what's the slope? So if you take a look at the slope, it's going, you choose any 2 points that are intersecting the x and the y-axis perfectly. So it's from here. So rise is 1, 2, 3, and that's a negative slope. So it's a negative 3 over 1, okay? So I'm going to write negative 3 over 1, but really the slope is negative 3. Okay? Okay, and the third question. Okay, so notice the difference actually in the numbers that we've given you. So you see that the x values here for number 1 and 2 are the same, right? We said 0, 1, negative 2, and 2. Okay, because we wanted you to have a negative number so you know what to do with the questions or the equation. But here, notice that the numbers that you used are, it's like 0. Of course, we're going to use 0. But then we have 4, negative 2, and 2 here instead of 1, negative 2, and 2. And the reason why you can strategically choose what your x values are, so right now, we tell you what your x values are, but you'll have questions where you actually get to pick what your x values are because they can be any number. There's an infinite amount of numbers that you can put in here, okay? But you want to strategically use them, choose the numbers so that if you notice here you have a fraction, you want it so that the number x is going to be able to be divided by 2, right? Because that's going to be the denominator, and whatever you put as x, that's going to be in the numerator. So that's why these numbers were chosen, okay? Like you don't want to choose 1 because then you're going to have a half, and that's really difficult to kind of graph that on the grid when you have decimals, okay? So again, strategically, when you have a fraction, you want to choose numbers that are divisible by the denominator. So just say if this denominator was 3, okay, you would choose 0, like a 6, negative 3, positive 3, okay? All right, so in this case, I'm going to section these off again. So I have y is equal to 1/2 times x minus 4. Y is equal to 1/2 times x minus 4. Half times x minus 4. Okay, so 0, 4, negative 2, and 2. Anything multiplied by 0 is 0, so we have here, that's negative 4. And then y is equal to, 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And then you have minus 4. So you have your y is equal to negative 2. Okay, the next one, it's 1 times negative 2 and negative 2 divided by 2. So you end up with negative 1 minus 4. And now you have negative 5. Okay, and the last one, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Sorry, my hair keeps getting in the way. And minus 4. So you have y is equal to negative 3. Okay, so let's plot all these on the graph. So we have, again, your y-axis and your x-axis, okay? So you have 0, negative 4, so 0 on the x-axis, negative 4 on the y. 4 and negative 2. Negative 2 and negative 5. And 2 and negative 3 right here. Okay, let's connect those dots. Okay, so because there's only one graph on this grid, you don't necessarily have to write down what the equation of this line is, but if you have more than one line on the graph, you have to make sure you label the equations, okay? So use your graph to state the y-intercept. So in this case, the y-intercept is right here. It's where your line intercepts the y-axis. So we have negative 4. And what's the slope? The slope is for every 1 rise, it runs 2. Okay, so 1 rise over 2 run. Okay, so it's rise over run. All right, so here's the thinking part. So let's flip to the next page or behind. I want you to look at the previous 3 questions, okay? What characteristics, so again, this is the same as in lesson 7 where I asked you to pause this so that maybe you can think about answering this question, okay? What characteristics do you notice with the y-intercept and the slope when you compare the equation to the graph? So look at the equation and then look at the graph. Okay, pause it now and try to figure it out. Okay, so I'm gonna add another word here. You're gonna compare the equation to the graph and the y-intercept and slope. I know there's a lot of ands in here. It's not grammatically correct, but we're gonna just deal with this right now, okay? So if you kind of compare, say we look at this question number 1 here, okay? If you notice, the y-intercept is right here, right? That 3. And that slope, that 2, is there. Okay, so what do you notice with that, right? So you can actually get the equation of a line from looking at the line, okay? Because once you get the y-intercept and the slope, you can just plug it in and it follows this form, which is the y equals mx plus b, okay? So I'm going to write that down here. Y equals mx plus b, okay? This is the slope, and this is the y-intercept. Okay, so if I were to go backwards and give you a question that had just the line, you'd be able to give me the equation. Okay, so you can go back and forth with all of these, okay? So to get the equation, you would need the y-intercept, which is in the equation denoted as the variable b, and the slope is denoted by the m. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go backwards with number 3. Now you're going to, sorry, not go backwards, we're going to keep going. So number 1 to 3 was using the long way to do this, okay, where you have to do a table of values and then graph it. Showing you a shortcut now, okay, which is awesome because it takes way less time. Okay, so for number 3, we're gonna kind of look at this note here to help us out. Sorry, let me just get my zoom correct. Okay, so here it says graph each line using just the y-intercept and the slope quickly and easy, which is awesome. Okay, so we have y is equal to x minus 4. So if I were to just rewrite this up here, okay, y is equal to mx plus b. Okay, so let's match these up. So here are the x's. The slope is the coefficient of x. Okay. And then the y-intercept is -4, right? So the coefficient of x, since there's no number written, right? We know it's a number 1. So the slope is 1. And the y-intercept is -4. Don't forget that it's included, like the symbol in front of the number is included in the y-intercept. Okay, so if I were to graph this, this is how fast this is, okay? Versus doing it the way we did on numbers 1, 2, and 3. Instead of doing so much work, right? All of this, watch this. Okay, you know that it's going to intercept the y-axis at -4. You know there's a dot there, right? And then we know that the slope is 1. If I asked you to write what the number 1 would be as a fraction, you would write it as 1/1. And if we know that that's the slope, we know that the top is the rise and the run is at the bottom. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to move. We know this point exists, okay? And we're going to go 1 rise, which is, they're both positive. So you're going to go up 1 and run 1 from where you started at the y-intercept. So up 1, run 1, there's your other point. Up 1, run 1, there's your other point. Rise 1, run 1, there's your point. Rise 1, run 1, there you go. So because it all increases by the same amount, right? It's going to make a line. So you can even go, if you go downwards, right? That's like a negative movement. When you go down and to the left, that's a negative movement. So it'd be like a negative and a negative. We know that that makes it a positive, right? That's like a positive slope. We'll get into the negatives in the next questions, but hopefully you understand what's going on here. Let's put a line there. Again, I'm going to put my x and my y axis. Okay, so that's for A. If you can go ahead of me, please feel free to go ahead of me, okay? So for B, it's going to be the same steps as before. So what's the y-intercept? Again, if I write down y equals mx plus b, you can see that this goes together, and that's the m and that's the x, right? And there's the y, obviously. So our y-intercept is denoted by the b, so it's +3. Okay, +3, and our slope is 1/2. Okay, so when there's a fraction, you don't have to, it's already in a fraction form. You don't have to kind of visualize it as a fraction. So from here, you're going to say it intercepts the y-axis at 3, so it's right here. That's the y-axis. This is the x-axis. Okay, so from 3, you're going to, okay, again, it's rise over run. So you're going to rise 1, and you're going to run 2. 1, 2, and there's your next point. You're going to keep on the pattern, rise 1 and run 2. Okay, so I made 3 dots, and I pretty much can just draw my line. All right. See how fast that is compared to the other way? So with any equation that has this form, that y equals mx plus b, you can use this way to graph it. Okay, so we'll go to C. All right, so the y-intercept, so I'm not going to write down y equals mx plus b anymore. Hopefully you guys see it. So it's 2, and then the slope is -3. Again, if you were to write this whole number as a fraction, it would be -3/1. That's your rise, and that's your run. Okay, so we're going to start at the intercept, which is at 2. And so now this is what I meant by now there's negatives. So the negative symbol, as you know, can either go with the numerator or the denominator. It actually doesn't matter. But I usually like to make it go with the numerator, with the top number, so I know that I've dealt with it. And I know when something goes up or down, when it rises, it goes up and down, and when it runs, it goes, right or left. Right? So because this is a negative rise, I know I'm going to go down 3 instead of going up like the other ones. I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to run to the right. Okay? Because I've already used the -3, the negative for the rise, then the run is positive. So a positive run will be movement that goes to the right. And it's just like how these number lines kind of, right, go. So see, this is positive going to the right and it's negative going to the left. That's the same idea of a negative and a positive movement for your slope. So, okay, so I'm going to keep going from this dot and it's going to be rise, which is down 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's going to run 1. So 1, 2, 3, run 1. Okay. I don't know if anyone can hear the epic music in the background. It's going on an epic journey right now. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, so I just want to show you too. See, when I start from the Y-intercept, you know how I did for this one, it was 3 down and 1 to the right. You can also make the other movement, which is if you go 3 up, you're going to go 1 to the left. Okay, because this is the negative movement for this set, and this is the negative movement for the 3 and 1. You can only affix the negative symbol to one of the numbers, either the numerator or the denominator, not to both. Because if you put a negative movement to both of these, well, you know, a negative divided by negative, that's equal to a positive, right? That doesn't equal to our negative slope. So I just wanted to make sure you understand that. So from here, I can go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to run 1 to the left. And there's my other dot. Okay. Okay. For D, again, if you want to go ahead of me, please do so. Our Y-intercept is positive 3. And our Y-intercepts can be, you know, positive or negatives, right? And slope is negative 2 over 3. Okay. Again, the two types of movements you're going to get is if you put the negative with the 2, it's going to be 2 down and 3 to the right, or 2 up and 3 to the left. Because again, this is a negative movement. Going down and going left is a negative movement. Okay, so I'm going to start at the Y-intercept, which is at 3. And then I'm going to go with the first one. Or actually, I'll go with the second one, okay? You're going to go up 2 and the left 3. 1, 2, 3. Up 2, left 3, 2, 3. Okay, and I'll go the other way too. Okay, so from here, positive 2, I'm going to go down 2, 1, 2, and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Down 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, connect the dots. It looks like a line. Yes. Okay. So don't forget to put your X and Y axis there. Okay. So that's how you would go from getting the equation in order to graph. And you can also go from, you know, the graph to the equation. Or here it is. State the equation of a line if you're given state the equation of a line in y equals mx plus b form if you're given that the slope is negative 2 over 3 and that the y-intercept is 4. So remember that this m means slope and the b means y-intercept. Okay? So all you have to do is write it. We know it's going to be in this form. Y is equal to slope x. Okay? So our slope is negative 2 over 3, and our y-intercept is 4, so that's a plus 4. Okay, and that's the equation. Okay, the next one, if our slope is 8, notice that I kept the y and the x there, right? Because the y and the x are numbers that can vary depending on where you are on the graph. Okay, so again, it's an infinite amount of numbers that y and x can be, depending on the slope and the y-intercept. So x minus 3. All right. And that's